I think since we're approaching 5 o'clock, I want to have a final question to it. It's the same question to each of you, and let's start with Miguel. Tell me what has been the most important lesson you have learned in your work, and let's start with you.
Okay. Well, what we do is tracking the money in Fundar, and we put all this information in service of people who need this information. We don't used to work directly with the communities, but some communities come to us asking for help. For example, HIV patient community. We help them to get access to antiretroviral medication, but also to change some public policy. What we're trying to do, because it's the spirit of our organization, is make general changes. And in this context, we have 2 lessons. The first one is not always the work is related with findings, scandals, you know, being famous, and a lot of first pages in the newspapers. Sometimes even the silent work, you know, just tracking the money, telling the government you are behind them, is very useful. But of course, sometimes this is hard to sell to the foundations, because in countries like Mexico, you need to put your efforts in a long process. Because if you just turn back, the things are going to be exactly as the first day when you find it. And the other lesson is what we do needs a lot of alliance. We need information from the grassroots groups. We need information from the family of the patients, for example. We need a lot of information from the government. You need to find the champions inside the government. In Mexico, you know, it's very complicated to say this in public, because all the time the easy way is to present the people who is working in the government as the enemy. But a lot of the successful stories in Fundar are related with the capacity to see inside the government who is able to help you. But the most important, who is able to help the people who is suffering some exclusion. That's 2 lessons.
Most important lesson which I learned in my activity is if you want to get access to information, first of all you have to get access to the community, to the society. You have to show them and prove somehow that what does it mean freedom of information, and why they have to value these rights. So each country, each society has a different situation and different sensitive zone. I call it bottom, which you push on this button, and after that, situation will change a lot. So, and we argue after lunch session, or before lunch session, when breakout session, that what's more important, result or process? Yeah, I think that procedure more important. You know, you can win a case and don't change anything, but you can lose case and change everything. That's more important. So that's my lesson.
Oh, after that statement, I'm quite reluctant to say anything more. Anyway, I'm sorry to spoil it all for you. I would say there are 3 or 4 key lessons for us. The one relates to a question that was put to Tanti earlier, and that is, once you've campaigned for the legislation or a policy or whatever it is that you think will be a necessary tool for improving access to information practice, do not disband the coalition groups. You must remain involved in the issue, because monitoring implementation is very significant. This is what we've tried to do in South Africa by keeping the campaign group intact through the Open Democracy Advice Center. The next step was to increase the community of users. Because if you have a bigger community of users, then you are able to obviate all of these arguments, these silly arguments around this is an elitist project, blah, 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 blah. If there are more people using the legislation, a lot more people realize its benefits. And a lot more people actually support the idea and defend it whenever it needs to, especially in cases of regressions. There will be regressions. We've seen it happening in South Africa, where you have a good access to information legislation, and then political leadership suddenly thinks, oops, what have we done? You know, this thing is creating headaches for us. And then they want to backtrack on the good strides that they've made. So it's important to be aware, to keep vigilant and be aware of these possibilities for regression.